Here's a hard lesson many teams learn the painful way. When a regulator comes knocking, they don't just want to hear that you did a DPIA, they want to see it. And if your brilliant analysis lives only in someone's head or a lost email thread, in their eyes, it may as well not exist. So, what will you gain in this final step chapter? In just a few minutes, you'll learn how to build a clear, audit ready DPIA report, structure it well, and use templates and automation to save time. We'll cover maintaining a proper repository with version control and, crucially, integrating DPIAs into your everyday business processes, vendor onboarding, change management, and continuous monitoring. You'll also see how review triggers keep your DPIAs alive as projects evolve and how to capture lessons learned. By the end, you'll know how to make your DPIA not just complete but durable, defensible, and genuinely useful. Let's dive in. So let's start step 5 with the tangible output of all your hard work, the DPIA report. This is the document that captures everything you've done and proves you did it. So what makes a report genuinely good rather than just long? A strong DPIA report tells a clear story. It describes the processing and its purpose, sets out the necessity and proportionality assessment, lists the risks you identified, details the mitigation measures, and states the residual risk and final decision. In other words, it walks a reader through your entire reasoning from what you're doing to why it's now acceptable. Here's a key insight from experience. The best reports are written so that someone who wasn't in the room can understand them. Imagine a new colleague or a regulator picking it up a year later. Can they follow your logic without you explaining it? That's the test. Let me give you a tip. Avoid drowning the report in jargon or endless technical detail. Aim for clarity. A decision maker should grasp the key risks and how you handle them in a few minutes. So as you write, keep asking, does this clearly show what we did and why it's safe to proceed? That clarity is what makes your report truly valuable. Now let's make sure your report isn't just good but audit ready, meaning it can stand up confidently when someone official examines it. Structure is your best friend here. So how should you organize it? A well-structured report follows a logical flow that mirrors the DPIA process itself. Start with an overview of the processing and its purpose. Then, the necessity and proportionality assessment. Then, the risk assessment with your register. Then, the mitigation measures and residual risk. And finally, the sign-offs and decisions. When a report follows this predictable path, anyone reviewing it can find what they need instantly. Audit readiness adds one more layer, evidence. It's not enough to say you did something, you want to show it. Dates, who was involved, what was decided, what controls were implemented. Think of it like keeping receipts. When the auditor asks, prove it, you simply point to the record. Let me share a real contrast. One organization sailed through a regulatory review because everything was clearly structured and evidenced. Another, with equally good intentions but messy documentation, struggled to prove anything. Same effort, very different outcome. So structure your report cleanly and keep your evidence attached. Ask yourself, if an auditor opened this tomorrow, would they find it clear and complete? Let's talk about working smarter, not harder, through templates and automation tools. Because doing every DPIA from a blank page is exhausting and inconsistent. So how do these tools help? And where's the catch? A good template gives you a ready-made structure, all the sections we've discussed, laid out with prompts and questions to guide you. This does two wonderful things. It saves time and it ensures consistency. So every DPIA in your organization covers the same essential ground. New team members especially benefit. They're guided rather than guessing. Automation tools take it further. Dedicated privacy platforms can walk teams through the process, auto-generate parts of the report, link risks to systems, and even flag when a review is due. For organizations running many DPIAs, this is a genuine game changer. But here's the catch I always warn about. A template or tool is only as good as the thinking behind it. I've seen teams treat a template as a box-ticking exercise, filling it in mechanically without real analysis. That defeats the whole purpose. So use templates to guide your thinking, not replace it. Ask, am I genuinely assessing here or just filling boxes? Tools should support your judgment, never substitute for it. Let's tackle something that sounds administrative but is genuinely vital. Maintaining a proper repository and version control for your DPIAs. Because a great DPIA that nobody can find or an outdated one mistaken for current causes real problems. So what does this involve? A repository is simply a central, organized place where all your DPIAs live. Not scattered across personal drives and email inboxes, but in one accessible, well-managed location. This means when a regulator asks or a colleague needs a past assessment, you can find it in seconds, not days. Version control is the companion discipline. DPIAs evolve, projects change, controls get updated. Version control ensures you always know which version is current, what changed, and when. Think of it like tracking drafts of an important document. You never want to act on an old version by mistake. Let me give you a real example of the pain here. A company once made a decision based on an outdated DPIA, unaware that risks had changed since. The confusion was costly. So keep your DPIAs centralized and versioned. Ask yourself, if someone needed our latest DPIA on this project right now, could they find the correct current version instantly? If not, that's a gap worth closing today. Now let's reach what I consider the mark of true privacy maturity, integrating DPIAs into your everyday business processes. Because a DPIA shouldn't be a special event you dread, it should be a natural part of how things get done. So how do you weave it in? Integration means the DPIA becomes a built-in step, not an afterthought. When a new project kicks off, the screening we discussed happens automatically. When a system changes significantly, a DPIA review is triggered as a matter of routine. It's baked into your workflows, so nobody has to remember to do it, it just happens. Let me contrast two organizations. In one, DPIAs were a panicked scramble whenever someone remembered them. In another, DPIA screening was simply part of the project checklist from day one. Guess which one had fewer nasty surprises? The integrated approach every time. Here's the mindset shift I want you to embrace. Stop thinking of a DPIA as a document you produce and start thinking of it as a process embedded in how your organization works. Ask yourself, at what natural points in our workflows should privacy be checked automatically? Building those checkpoints in is what makes privacy sustainable rather than a constant firefight. Let's get specific about two everyday business moments where DPIAs really need to plug in: vendor onboarding and change management. These are exactly the points where new privacy risks quietly enter, so let's make sure you catch them. Start with vendor onboarding. Every time you bring in a new supplier who'll handle personal data, that's a fresh risk entering your world. So a privacy check should be part of onboarding. What data will they access? Where will it go? What safeguards do they have? Remember, you stay accountable for data in their hands. Building this into onboarding stops risky vendors slipping through unnoticed. Then there's change management. Systems and projects don't stand still. A new feature, a new data field, a new integration, any of these can change your risk picture. So your change process should include a simple trigger. Does this change affect personal data? If yes, revisit the DPIA. Let me give you an example. A team added an innocent-looking analytics feature to an app, and it quietly started collecting location data. Because change management included a privacy check, it was caught before launch. So ask, do our onboarding and change processes have privacy checkpoints built in? That's where DPIAs prove their ongoing worth. Let's reinforce one of the most important truths in this entire course. A DPIA is not a one-time event, it's living. And keeping it alive comes down to continuous monitoring and clear review triggers. So how do you actually do this? Continuous monitoring means keeping an eye on your processing over time, watching for changes that could affect privacy. Because the DPIA you completed last year may not reflect reality today. New risks emerge, technologies shift, regulations evolve. Monitoring ensures you notice. Review triggers are the practical signals that tell you it's time to revisit a DPIA. These include a significant change to the processing, a new technology being introduced, a data breach or near miss, a change in the law, or simply a scheduled periodic review, say annually. When any trigger fires, you dust off the DPIA and reassess. Let me give you a concrete example. A company had a solid DPIA, but then a new privacy law came into force. Because they had review triggers in place, they promptly updated their assessment and stayed compliant. Without that trigger, they'd have drifted out of compliance unknowingly. So ask yourself, what events should prompt us to revisit our DPIs? Define those triggers and your assessments stay genuinely current. Let's close step 5 and with it the core method by capturing lessons learned. Because every DPIA teaches you something, and smart teams turn that experience into future strength. So, what does this mean in practice? Capturing lessons learned means reflecting after each DPI. What went well? What was harder than expected? Did a risk we dismissed turn out to matter? Feeding these insights back improves your next assessment. Over time, your organization gets genuinely better at this. Now let's consolidate the big ideas of step 5. Build a clear, audit-ready report that tells the full story. Keep it structured and evidenced. Use templates and automation to save time, but never let them replace real thinking. Maintain a central repository with proper version control. And most importantly, integrate DPIs into your everyday processes, vendor onboarding, change management, and continuous monitoring with clear review triggers. Now, if you found this valuable, do subscribe because we keep releasing practical privacy training just like this. The full playlist is linked in the description and clicking it lays out every video in order. And for the complete experience, with role plays, quizzes, and practice tests, my Udemy course on conducting DPI is linked below. Next, we tie it all together with a real walkthrough. See you there.